Hey everybody, I'm Michelle Brown. I work as a career coach in the Career Development Center, and I'm joined by Chase Newmeyer, who's Field Sales and Marketing Representative for TTI. We also have Deanne Smith with us, who is part of our Employer Relations team in the Career Development Center. So welcome. We're so glad you all could join us today for this session. And today we'll be talking about stepping stones. These are kind of job titles, those entry-level jobs, and how you can use your strengths and values to find that first job. We'll talk a little bit about how you start with that. How do you think about what your strengths are and how this relates to jobs and what employers are looking for. We'll talk a little bit about what's important to you. How do you think about that? Give some examples of entry-level job titles and then how you find these jobs. But we're actually going to start with Chase's story and let him tell you a little bit more about his journey to his current job. So we'll let you take it away, Chase.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Super excited to be here and speak to you all. Definitely miss the Boone area. So I now live closer to the coast. I live about 8 minutes from the beach right now. So I haven't seen snow in a minute. I know that's very different from you all. So I definitely miss it. But I graduated in May of 2020 from Appalachian State with a degree in computer information systems. And finding a job in the middle of the pandemic and in the middle of everything that was going on in just the world was very daunting in the middle of ending my year. So we'll speak a little bit about that as we go. But when I got started at App, I had no idea what I wanted to major in, but I did feel like I had to choose a major and a career path all in one as soon as I stepped foot on a college campus. And I immediately knew once I got here and I spoke to folks that wasn't necessarily the case and it was okay. I ended up changing my major 4 different times. So at first I was a communications major. I then changed over into the business school. I was a supply chain management major for a little while. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to do a double major. And so I did supply chain management and computer information systems for a bit. And then I learned very, very quickly that supply chain, that wasn't it for me too. And so then I just dropped that and then I was just information systems. So that's kind of where I landed with that. When I was at App State, I got involved in quite a lot of things. The main one was the ambassador program. So I was a student ambassador, got to do some tours and work with alumni and the chancellor a bit, and that was super fun. And then I also worked in university communications for a bit. So that was a good experience as well. Got to learn a little bit about the insides and outsides of university communication, marketing, and that kind of stuff in general. And then through the help of the Career Development Center in Deanne, I was able to find TTI, or Tectonic Industries, which is where I currently work for the brand Heart, which I can get into a little bit as well. And I now moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina. So, and that's where I currently am. On this slide, you also notice that I have my work cell and my email address as well. As a fellow mountaineer, I always want to help other mountaineers as well. So if you guys have any questions about just App State stuff or, finding a job, and Chase, what is this experience like for you? What was that like about, for you? Then shoot me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email. Happy to connect on that as well. But thank you guys.
All right, thanks so much for being here and for that introduction. And we'll go ahead and get started with the next slide. And so Chase and Deanne and I will be talking to you a little bit about just where do you start? And first of all, I would say start with thinking about just experiences, just as Chase mentioned, some of those experiences, like working for university communications. So it's not just your major, the ambassador experience. So I think it's kind of taking a look at everything you've done and those skills that you've developed from both those in and outside of the class experiences. And these skills can be applied to kind of these stepping stone jobs. And I'll show you in just a couple of minutes how to find these on Handshake, our career management system. And so Chase, Dan, you want to add in anything about that? Like how do you go about just kind of starting with thinking about what you want to do first?
Yeah, I think I can start. So I think automatically most of us immediately sell ourselves short. We don't think about the little things that we do that we're almost experts in, we kind of discredit that and say, oh, well, I can't put that on a resume. I can't talk about this thing. And that's completely not the case. If you're good at like, little things, like maybe you're really good at cooking food and making people happy around food. Well, guess what? You cultivate great dining experiences by listening to what people like to eat and cooking something great in the kitchen. Wow, you're going to be a sous chef. You know what I mean? You can transform any small thing and really spin it. And that's why it's so important when you're doing the job process and job search to really connect with other folks, especially in the Career Development Center, to really highlight on those little things that you might miss, so they can say, "Wait a second, this is a good thing. Let's pull this in. Let's work with that a little bit, and let's get that on your resume."
Yeah, absolutely. And, also thinking about what's that kind of skill, that thing that you keep coming back to, like how do I incorporate that customer service into a job? What does that look like? So if there's kind of that skill, that thing that you keep going back to, think about that and remember that as you start to look for these jobs.
Right.
This gives you a list of skills that our employers say that they seek in our recent graduates. So this is based on data from our National Association of Colleges and Employers. So it would probably be good to just take notes of some of these, because when employers are surveyed, they're saying this is what we're looking for in our new hires. Okay, and some of these you may think, oh, I think I've got that, or maybe there's some that you feel like maybe I need to work on a little bit. You want to think about all of them as a whole, but also be able to think about those experiences that relate to these skills too, and be able to think about how you articulate that on your resume and through an interview. Okay. All right. How about Chase, Deanne, you want to add anything on our slide about skills and how you figure out what skills you have, and how do you think about those and articulate those?
I'll start. I will say that I would encourage everyone to Google these NACE career competencies, and you'll find, more of an explanation. I think most of this is self-explanatory, but I think that the explanations you could find online will actually trigger thoughts in your mind, of how they do relate to you. And I think this is a great opportunity to talk about just self-awareness. And you'll become self-aware by actually talking to others. So whether it is your friends or your classmates, coworkers, other peers, faculty even, or former employers, there is a great way just to start a conversation. Say, what do you think my strengths are? And you might be real surprised, or you'll at least be affirmed probably. And so I would encourage you to take some time. And I know that we think we have more of it right now, but maybe just carve out a little time, when you can, to think about this and write down, give yourself affirmation. What are you good at? And because there's something, but Chase hit the nail on the head. It's really easy to undersell yourself. And that's why I encourage you to talk with our career coaching staff and the coaching staff in the College of Business to really look at what you have done and make sure that you are, when you get to the phase of creating your resume, which I hope you're doing all throughout college, you're really breaking down these experiences that you've had, for these skills. And the last thing I'll say is that we are doing another panel tomorrow called all the places you will go with any major. And those employers will be in the management training leadership development fair on Thursday. And these employers are notorious for talking about the things that you see on this screen. They'll say, you know what, if we just have somebody who is a good communicator, willing to engage, willing to learn, can lead themselves and others, we can train them to do anything. You'd be surprised, if you have even office experience. That is an experience that a lot of people your age don't have as much. And just those skills of telephone communication, good email communication, you'd be surprised how far those skill sets can actually make you stand apart. So those sorry, that's probably longer than you wanted me to speak, but those are my reactions, and I'll ask Chase to add to that.
Yeah, so something that helped me whenever I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and then also prepare for interviews was to look at skills like these and kind of write down how I fit the bill for each of these with a quick sentence of how I fit that bill underneath each one. So, how do you fit leadership? And if you were asked, well, what are some ways where you've shown leadership? What are some ways where you've shown career management or professionalism or work ethic? Have a sentence written down somewhere. And whether you have it in front of you or not, later on, if you're ever asked in an interview, you're going to remember, oh, I wrote something down about that. And it might not be exactly what you wrote down, but you'll remember that you wrote it down and you'll pull from that memory in the interview versus going off of nothing. And I would be willing to bet that almost, everyone here and, anyone that is in university to kind of look at this and be able to have something that they can put down underneath. Another word that comes to mind in the theme of this is also, are you a self-starter? Are you self-motivated? And, what does that look like? A lot of positions, they might not have, structure for the entire job. There may be some gray area. What are you going to do with that gray area? And do you have a proven track record of being self-motivated to fill in those gaps where there isn't structure within whatever role you're looking for? And if you're asked about that or hinted towards that, are you able to speak to that as well? So that would be something to look to as well.
Yes, I think that's a great point, Chase, especially during everything going on right now. I particularly think employers are going to be looking at that self-motivation and probably even ask you about it, like how did you manage that during this time? Because they know that most of the people that are graduating or will graduate soon have gone through this and had to figure out, how do I manage my time now? And that's a great answer to that question about time management could be how, and self-motivation could be how you managed your classes and things like that in your academics.
Exactly. And, everyone is now an expert, especially university students who transition from in-person to online, about the Zoom world and what that looks like, especially as younger adults who are using technology a lot more than these people that might be using Zoom or some technology platform similar to this for the first time to conduct interviews for these jobs. They're craving more people with these skills, especially right now. And so you're a leg up in a lot of these things for that. And you can also speak to how written and oral communication have changed throughout this Zoom transition or this virtual transition too. And you're an expert on it because you've been doing it while you've been learning. So that's, you don't want to sell yourself short for that either.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about some other websites that are really great for learning about skills either in your major or skills in targeted industries that you might be looking at. One is called onetonline.org, and this is based on the Department of Labor information, but you can also look up jobs by keywords and look for the types of skills that they're seeking. And also, I'll show you careers.appstate.edu/career connect. So this is going to get you to all of our industry themed events that are going on this semester. But also the really cool thing about this site is it also gives you skills for those industries and some different job titles. So that's a great website as well. And then finally, careers.appstate.edu/careers in my major is a great site, again, for finding career titles by major, but also what the types of skills in your major, in your field, internship host of App students, and also employers of App State students. Okay.
Michelle, can I add one thing?
Mm-hmm, please.
This will probably be temporary. Oh, no. Okay. You just mentioned you're going to talk about those cluster pages. Okay. I was about to say that might be time limited information, but it's really good. Sorry.
Okay. That's right. Yes. So it's while these events are going on, you'll be able to see like this management trainee and leadership career cluster is going to show you this kind of information like I just spoke about. Now, ONET Online, that's going to be around forever, and the Careers in My Major site will be will be around. But this one will probably evolve and update as semesters go on. So if you like these pages, you may just take a picture of it or something like that, and that way you can keep it. And so that's the Career Connect pages. Okay, and I'll talk just a minute about values and then maybe let Chase and Deanne jump in on this conversation too. But this is just a little activity to get you thinking about what you might value in your first job and kind of what those deal breakers are of what you're ultimately kind of looking for. Because I mean, you can spread your wings wide and look for anything and everything as part of your job search. And that might work, it may, but if you do maybe a little bit more of a targeted search, it might not feel quite so overwhelming, and targeted by just small things like some general geographic locations, a general skill set that you'd like to use, and then maybe what are some of those values of what you hope to find in that first job. You probably will not find, you may, but you probably won't find everything that you're looking for in that first job. Sometimes that just evolves, but you want to think about what's important to you as you're doing that search. And if you think about you're single, you just graduated from college, you're packing to leave for your first job, and you have some job offers, and here's what you have kind of on the table: entry level, small to medium size, a nonprofit or non-government, public service. You've got maybe a seasonal type of job that you don't have to feel like it's permanent, that you have to stay forever, but it's in a great geographic location, like Aspen or the Caribbean or something like that. Caribbean sounds really good right now. Or a well-paying position with a large corporation. And so think about the one you go to first, right? The job that just kind of sounds most appealing, and you want to think about why. Why did you go there first? So the entry level, small to medium, maybe that's just kind of your personality. You think the work culture might fit in well with kind of what you value in maybe a more small, intimate environment. Nonprofit, non-government, maybe you really want to do something that's more in a service kind of capacity as the focus. Public service, government, you might be drawn to the benefits or that kind of thing. And then the seasonal one, that might just be, okay, that sounds nice because I don't have to commit right now, and I can just go somewhere and earn a little bit of money until I figure out maybe what's next. And then the well-paying position, maybe you like the competition, the opportunity to move up in a larger organization. Okay. And so Chase, can you maybe tell us a little bit about how you went about, did you think about your values and how you ended up with TTI and how that maybe played into it?
Yeah, so definitely big value guy. I didn't want to end up at a company or, working for anyone who didn't have that triple bottom line. And if you are in the business school at App, then you understand what that triple bottom line is. But for those of you who aren't, the triple bottom line looks more than just, can we make the most money all the time? It's also looking at the people, and it's also looking at a community that the corporation or the business is in. And so those are things that I was looking for directly, because that I wasn't able to compromise that value whenever I was going to go work for, something. So in terms of positions in the middle of everything, my dream before, COVID kind of got started was to go work for an airline and look at their customer experience and then see how I could evolve it to be more focused on why customers were traveling and how we could cater that experience to make it a little more specialized for, their flying experience. Somebody who's traveling for graduation is experiencing a totally different flight experience than someone who's traveling because they might have lost a loved one. And so so getting in the weeds a little bit, that's what I wanted to do. That was the dream, right? Well, when everything got started, airlines, they weren't doing well. They were pivoting. And so I had to pivot as well. And then just say, okay, well, what do I have to offer? Where do I want to apply? And so, all these lists, or this list of, 4 job offers and these bullet points, I was casting a wide net because I was just unsure of where I was going to be. And I ended up with that last bullet. My parents actually moved across the country this summer as well. And so I needed to be in a place where I could be financially secure myself. And so that was something that I was able to find in TTI, but also they have those 3 values that I was looking at too. So it was a good medium. And, TTI didn't have everything that I was looking for at first, but once I got into the job and I learned about the job and I was in it for a bit, I found other things that I learned were important values to me while being in the position that I hadn't thought of before. Like, how does the company have a great culture, and what do they do to back that culture versus what they're just saying online. And so that was a big thing for me. I hope I answered your question. I kind of got off in the weeds a little bit there.
Oh no, that was perfect. And one thing I was thinking about as you were speaking is, so that first job's, it's a little bit, well, any new job change it's a little bit of a risk. So you can learn as much as you can learn about a company, right? But at some point you have to commit and make that decision. And then you get to learn things that you wouldn't have known had you not been hired, right? That you didn't even realize that you valued in a position. So I think sometimes with students that I work with, there's a little bit of that fear of just taking that step of putting yourself out there and then taking that next step of making that commitment.
And it's funny that you mentioned that fear. So a really good friend of mine from college, her name is Lauren. She had this quote that she found and she shared with me, and it was, when you're stepping into that first job, you're stepping into the whatever, we're so scared of making the wrong choice or the wrong move. And kind of challenge that thought a little bit. Maybe there isn't a wrong move. Maybe there's just a move that you make, and then you evaluate once you're in it, you can always move again. You're not stuck with whatever first thing that you choose, but whatever step you're taking, you're still moving forward. You're still learning. You're still growing whatever step that you're moving in. And so there's nothing really to be scared about. If you have to pivot later, you can. You're not stuck. And so if you keep that in the back of your mind, it's less daunting. It's more of just thinking strategically, what am I going to gain from this experience if I do leave? And you can kind of look at it and visualize that way.
Yeah, that's a great example, especially of taking those steps. Yeah, and not feeling stuck. Okay. Now, so on this page, I'm going to go through a couple more slides and then give our audience a chance to ask questions. This page is giving you some ideas of some of those stepping stone job titles, and feel free to add to this, Chase or Deanne, but these are just some of the ones that I see come through on Handshake that tend to be kind of popular, that you'll see maybe a few more postings like this. So any so management trainee, that trainee word, tells they might have like a program, like a rotational program that gets you trained in a position before you move into something else. Sales representative, field representative, which that's what Chase is. And then really communication assistant or coordinator, you put a keyword in front of that and you can switch that around. It might be writing assistant or something like that. So we've got the marketing, social media coordinator and assistant. Those are popular kind of entry-level terms. Customer service representative, and sometimes people see that and think, oh, I don't want to work with the public or do any of that. There's many of those that are more behind the scenes, honestly. I mean, some are going to be frontline, but customer service can look very different depending on where you're doing it and how you're doing it. And it can often be a way to get your foot in the door to be able to move up within companies. Okay. And then we've also got some titles like leadership development programs with some of our employers. Deanne can probably speak about those. And then fellow. So if you take that, there might be policy fellow or a service fellow. A fellow indicates that that's kind of like that gap year title of what you would do after graduation. Potentially, some people do it in between undergrad and graduate school. A fellow or fellowship is usually about 1 to 2, sometimes 3 years long. Okay. Then office assistant, manager, and brand ambassador are another. Can you think of others, Deanne, that I might have missed or to add to that?
That's a perfect list. The one that did cross my mind is analyst. There might be some analyst positions that are entry level, particularly for our business students. But, then you work into senior analyst roles, with experience. So that's the only other one. This is a great list. And I think this is a good opportunity to point out, I just love this theme of stepping stones. And, I think it would be helpful to a lot of students to look at those first positions, as just that, where or what is a good place to start. I would hate for students to feel discouraged that they're not finding that perfect dream job. It may not be an entry level role, but maybe take some time and use your resources and talk to others about what that first stepping stone position may look like. These are very, very good titles. So thanks for asking.
Absolutely. And Chase, I was going to see if you would tell a little bit more about like what a sales rep or field rep is, because I think sometimes students tend to go to like car sales or something like that, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that might be the image they have in their mind. So can you tell a little bit just more about those roles?
Yeah, so my full title is Field Sales and Marketing Representative, and so I'm representing a brand that I work for. So I work for Tectonic Industries, but the brand that I focus on specifically is Hart, which is a brand new power tool line that is exclusive in Walmart's. And so, my client is Walmart. It's a different partnership than Walmart's, seen before. So I'm a face to the brand of TTI and also Hart. And so I'm working with customers, but I'm also working with these stores and making sure that product is there. I'm making sure the marketing material is there. I'm managing inventory. I'm looking at, what best is selling in this particular location based off of the region, and how can it do better? Does it need to move somewhere? Do we need to do additional, marketing strategies? So it's not just somebody happen to walk down the hardware aisle and I'm there. So now they're going to be stuck in a 5-minute conversation with me. That's not something that I ever, want to do or strive to do. And so that's not something that you'd experience if you ran into me. But it does allow you to kind of get to know who, your customer is in terms of the brand that you're representing, and then better find solutions for them based off of what they're looking for. So what I really love about my role is that somebody comes down the hardware aisle because they need something, and they have no idea what they need. And truthfully, if you would have asked me what they needed in terms of power tools about 5 months ago when I got started, I wouldn't have been able to answer you because I only knew about drills. And I still don't know a lot about all the power tools, but I know enough to really connect the dots for someone with someone and provide that confidence and that experience of, I'm making the right purchase today for the job that I'm looking for today. And it's a good investment, and this thing isn't going to fail me. And that's the experience that I'm doing as a sales representative, is I'm making sure that, somebody is spending their money in a good way and not just spending the most money that I can pull from them. So that's kind of, I hope that answers your question. I can go into more details about something specific if it doesn't.
So it sounds like an honest, a value of honesty and transparency.
Right, exactly. And it does help whenever we, quite frankly, are the better brand in the Walmart. We are not, Walmart's tool. We are our outside tool that's coming in and really providing value. It is a little bit more expensive, but in terms of the job, I don't have to lie. I don't have to, gimmick someone, and that's not something that I want to do. So you're right.
Yeah, because there are organizations that really push, just for productivity. They're just going to look at those total sales, and they're not really concerned about how you get there or the person, in the sales role. They just want to hit numbers. And I think you do work with an organization that, one, has a good product, but has a great strategy and values all the people involved.
Something that
in the transaction.
Right. Something that the CEO says a lot. We're on frequent calls with him often is, what you're doing in the store, look at its impact versus the activity. Are you doing something that's just an activity that doesn't really have a big impact? Or are you doing something that is impactful, and how are you doing that impact? So when I think about that in terms of just everyday life, am I just checking off a to-do list, or am I doing something? Am I speaking the language? Am I having the right body language? Does the tone of voice suggest that my impact for the one that I'm trying to make is a positive one for somebody regardless of who I'm working with, whether it's in a job or just in my personal life.
Great. Sounds like so many different values are kind of come into play here in the work that you do, and maybe that you never knew were important, like you said, until you actually got into the position. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing. So I want to talk a little bit quickly about just how to find these jobs. And of course, Handshake is the kind of go-to place to start. There's many websites, Indeed and LinkedIn, that you can use as well. But I want to talk about just our career management system. If you're not familiar with that, appstate.joinhandshake.com. And you can search jobs by a lot of different criteria. You might just start with some of those keywords, the skill keywords that we talked about, or those stepping stone job titles, if one kind of sounded appealing to you. You can try putting in, you can filter by major, but I don't always recommend that, just because that might limit you to what comes up for your major. It may not be broad enough. So sometimes just that broad keyword search, and then maybe a geographic location as well. So for example, if you're a sustainable development major or sustainable technology, put in sustainability as a keyword, or sustainable as a keyword. If you're a comm major, put in communication, writing, public relations as a keyword, and see where that takes you. Because the cool thing about that is if you put in communication, it's probably going to filter with like marketing jobs and things like that too, because in the employer world, in those job title worlds, they're not basing a job title on the major always. It's not going to be, communication can overlap some with marketing as well, and public relations. They can all kind of intertwine. So be, creative, but also think about those skill sets that you would like to use as part of your work, and put that in there. Okay. And this shows you how that might work. So if leadership is something that really stood out to you, put that in there and then see what all comes up for leadership type positions. You'll probably get management kinds of positions in there as well.
I think it's important to note too, whenever I was searching for a job and searching for careers and things like that, whenever I was looking for stuff last March, Handshake has opportunities that are not available just with a Google search. So you can find a lot more within Handshake than you can just on Google. So that's something important to note. You don't want to discredit Handshake at all. It's very, very powerful, and some employers are putting things specifically on there because they're looking for you, their target audience, and they don't want to put it on the web. So something to keep in mind.
That's right. And you want to make sure that you've updated profile information on here, put your resume on here, and make sure it's been reviewed and it's current and up to date, and make your profile public when you're ready for employers so that they'll be able to view you. And you may get pinged that way by an employer that says, oh, this is the major and the kind of skills or experiences that I'm looking for. So the more you populate it with your information, the better your chances are of maybe finding those matches you're looking for. Okay. And finally, this is the last slide I'll show you. Again, this is going back to that Career Connect slide, and that's letting you know about all of our additional programming that we have going on throughout the semester that's based on industry. So definitely check that out. And also on Handshake, if you want to see any more of our events or workshops that we have going on, let me go back to that slide. You can go to events and you can search all of our events. You can search for our specific career fairs that we have going on this semester. Okay.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Michelle, I just wanted to mention, I love the work that we've done around industry clusters, and just keep in mind that you might find these starting positions in all industries. And so, I mean, for example, there are going to be communication positions available at the STEM fair next week. So I really encourage students and tell your peers to really do a deep dive. It takes some planning in advance, but do a deeper dive into the employers, because they might be in a particular industry, but be hiring for positions that aren't necessarily in that industry, if that makes sense. We've got BMW coming to the STEM fair in a week, and they need business majors, but they are also going, but they're going to be at the STEM fair. They even have a communication internship. So just a quick plug, just another way to kind of look at all of these events through all possible lenses, I think will serve everybody really well.
Absolutely. Okay, and that is the end of our presentation piece. We would love for you to ask questions if you have them, so we'll open up the floor for any questions that you might have. For any of us.
Really quick too, if you wouldn't mind going back to my slide with the contact information there. I see that a lot of you guys are, sophomores. I think there's a junior. So a lot of you guys aren't necessarily looking for a career just quite yet, but maybe you're looking for that stepping stone role. TTI also has some internships as well. So if you're looking for an internship, there might be some available, near you, wherever you're from. So shoot me a text and we can kind of connect on that. I can get you connected with, that information to see if you're interested, and give you some more details about that. So, yeah, that might be helpful.
Thank you for sharing that, Chase.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are, we had Internship Expo last week, and those employers you can still look at in the fairs page. There's probably still a list you can review. And if you don't see postings in Handshake for those organizations, maybe check their websites. Not everyone posts all their positions in Handshake, but Handshake should be the go-to. And I'll put my email address in here. If anybody just ever wants to just ask, do we have these kinds of employers? These kinds of employers. I'm happy to be a resource in addition to the coaches. And share, what I know. I'm probably going to be a little bit more available after we get through Career Connect, but I'd be happy to, and even groups of students who want to just think out loud. One thing I'll just mention, if I know I'm way beyond the age group here, but I took one of these entry-level roles, and I'm so grateful that I did. But I'll tell you one thing, I don't know if I can put a word to it in terms of a value other than like schedule and routine, but I found it really difficult. There was no really beginning and ending in the work, except for maybe the work day. And even then I wasn't working traditional work hours, but that's what I found out once I came to education, was that I really appreciated sort of the flow and the rhythm of an academic year. And I never, ever thought about that before I got into it. So there are other things that you could be thinking about, in terms of, work environment. Chase has to be able to get himself out of his house every day. He has to be a self-starter. Some people would not like that. Some people are going to work better if they have non-pandemic, a place to report to. And so those are just some things. And I know that Chase probably isn't in the geographic area that he would have chosen, but it literally is a stepping stone for him in terms of a location. The company has said, and proposed that once you're successful and you work in this territory, we will have opportunities other places. So I would say keep an open mind, in terms of location, but that's another value. Is there an environment that you value? And, maybe you can't get there first time, but have those conversations, if you can make moves to other locations and in what time frame. Maybe getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but I looking back at my 22-year-old self, that's what I wish I had known.
I think something that I wasn't expecting in the role that I'm in now is the company is also pouring resources into me as someone that they've hired to continue to train me in ways that are outside of my role, with the understanding that I'm not a contracted employee. So if I decide tomorrow that I'm going to put in my 2 weeks, I can do that. And so it might be considered a waste of resources for them, but it's not, because they know that they're fostering a good environment. So for example, on it was Monday of last week, we did a whole training on negotiations and what that looks like in terms of in the business world, like, what does that look like, and walking through that and doing different, scenarios and things of that nature. And that's just one example, but there are so many times where I'm doing those things and they don't have to do that necessarily, but they want to, prepare me and build me up. And that's a value that I didn't think that I would find as well. And there's, it's not isolated to just TTI. TTI does a great job of that. But other companies do that as well. And that's something that you value, where you want to continue to learn whatever role that you step into as a stepping stone role, as an entry level role. That's a question that you can ask during an interview, but also something that you can look for in job postings. How are they going to further advance you?
Yeah, that's a great point, that investment in employees. Yeah, for sure. And the training and professional development piece. And just to let you know, I do have the chat box open if you would like to put a question in there that you have for any of us, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question. We'll wait just a minute or two more and see if anyone has any questions for us. Well, this is like my first year seminar class online. I'm teasing. Maybe we covered everything.
I think, to end. Oh, go ahead, Maria.
I was just going to say, I know for me, I have to kind of ruminate on some of these things. And, with the skills, I think it's really a really helpful thing to, write a little sentence about why, so that, like you guys said, we're not going off of nothing. We have something to kind of pull from. And so that's just, I don't really have any questions at this point, but I'm happy to reach out in the future. I just need some reflection and that kind of thing. But you guys really did cover a lot of important things. So thank you so much for opening this time. I really am excited to kind of peruse Handshake again and kind of get back into all of that. So
thank you. And I wanted to just take a quick minute to plug folks like Chase, our alumni, your neighbors, your faculty. I think you'd be surprised at how helpful it is to talk to people who are in the field and find out what they do like or find challenging. But you have to remember, their experience is their experience, and it may not match yours exactly. I think you do have to qualify that, but maybe have those values conversations with others as sort of a guide, in your search. I think you'd be very empowered by doing that.
We are very lucky to be Mountaineers and have that alumni network. Deanne, that actually reminded me, whenever I was searching for roles, a friend of mine actually still works for TTI. She is my boss's boss. But at the time, she was in the role that I was in whenever I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I called her and I said, hey, I'm thinking about applying for TTI. I don't know. I'm not really a power tools kind of guy. Like what does this look for me? How do you enjoy it? And she told me all about it. She told me the ins and outs. And then, she was ready to connect me with somebody from the inside. And having an alumni network that is like that, and, you don't necessarily have to be friends with them. If any of you guys were to text me and say, hey, I want to know more about TTI, who can I talk to? I'm going to talk your ear off, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, and then I'm going to connect you with some folks that are also on the inside that can better answer your questions as well. And you already have an in. And that's like literally wherever there's a Mountaineer or an alumni, that's a connection that you have. And a lot of the folks in career development have those connections written down, and they update them, and they can get you connected as well. There's a guy who graduated from App. His name is Brad, who works for TTI in the recruitment department. And as soon as I was hired and I was just logging into my email for the first time for the company, I got an email from Brad, and it was like, App State, go App. And then an email about how much he misses App and what his experience was like and how he was excited to connect with me. And I have no idea who this Brad guy is. And now he's a fun guy to talk to every now and then, and just to connect with, how App is and that kind of thing. So that's something that you have as something in your pocket. Utilize it, because it's so underutilized. in terms of students really reaching out to other Mountaineers.
These are all really, really great, valuable points, and so glad that you found it helpful. So thanks for the feedback, Maria and others. So we really appreciate your time today. Any last minute questions? Going once. Well, do please feel free to reach out to any of us, myself, Deanne, or Chase. We've put it out there. We're happy to help you out. Take advantage of it. The people that have said there'll be resources to you. You've got so many of them here at App, people that are ready to do that. And with that, thanks so much. Thank you for all the feedback. With them, go ahead and end our time together, and do thank you for being here, and hope you found the session helpful. Have a great day. Stay warm if you are in Boone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.